Hi, welcome to the first panel discussion for Girls in Tech South Africa. We are really excited to be joined by privacy professionals, something we're excited to learn about in today's discussion. So joining us today are some really powerful ladies in the field of privacy. We're joined by Crystal, Ritasha, and Cheryl today. So thanks, ladies, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Our member who introduced you to us said that you're very good ladies and very lucky to have you here. So thanks so much for taking time to educate members on the career of being a professional. So based on my ignorance, I'm going to open up with quite a silly question, which is, what does a privacy professional do and how did you get into the career? So if you don't mind helping us by introducing yourself and then helping us understand what a privacy professional does. How does one get into this career?
Thank you for the great introduction and for having us here today. We're all very passionate about privacy. I think, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of the other ladies, most business processes include personal information. We're working in a data-driven economy. So it wouldn't be correct for me to say that there's one ideal or one model of a privacy professional. I think that privacy is embedded in most of our business processes now. So you may have a privacy professional who's focused on the IT or tech space. There are lots of privacy professionals that are in the legal space and perhaps even in the business partnering space. So where there is personal data, especially volumes of it, you'll probably have to have somebody there who has a good understanding of the requirements and of privacy and the legislation.
Okay, thanks so much, Crystal. That's very informative, and it makes a lot of sense to know every day we are exchanging personal information. So privacy does extend all of this digital information that we extend. And then let's hear from Cheryl, and maybe Cheryl, you can also tell us whether it's only digital or also physical.
Thank you, Anushka. As Crystal had mentioned, data is the new fuel. So processing of personal information is fundamental and core to so many business functions in the deliverance of these products, solutions, and services. And this results in a mammoth amount of processing of personal information. Behind the processing of personal information, there has to be an individual who ensures that from the collection through to the usage, right to the deletion of that personal information, that such processing is done in accordance and abides to the data protection principles as found in data protection law. Now, our law in South Africa, namely the Protection of Personal Information Act, also known as POPI or papaya or any fruit or flower that you choose to name it as, protects personal information regardless in whatever format or medium it is stored or collected in. So that basically means that if that personal information is in a digital format sitting on a cloud or in a server or transmitted through networks, or if that information is in its paper-based in a folder or in a file, in a box, archived somewhere, that information in a digital or in a paper-based form is equally protected. So as a data protection privacy professional, you really need to understand how and where the personal information is being collected, how and where it is being processed, and really just ensure that that personal information is afforded the same level of protection, be it in a paper-based form or be it in an electronic and digital form.
Okay, so protecting our personal information is actually principle-based, and principle-based is really hard to adhere to, in my opinion. Because it could mean different things to different people. But that's quite interesting. Let's hear from Ritasha. What can you add to what career and profession is?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. As the ladies have said, personal information is really everywhere. But I just want to maybe bring a slightly different perspective to it. When we look at personal information and when we look at what our act is actually called, Protection of Personal Information Act. So my career really stems from a cybersecurity perspective. And there's various components that we look at. And from a constitutional perspective, we are effected a right in terms of the Constitution around how our information is looked after, how it is shared, how it is processed across various components, industries, companies, etc. Whether you're in the private sector or the public sector actually doesn't matter. So it really comes down to, if you want to understand what is a privacy professional, it's a professional that really is a member of a broader team, if I can put it that way. What you need for a privacy profession to really flourish is you need legal experts, because they bring in the perspective of what does the law tell us about our right to information. Whether you're a citizen, whether you're a user, whether you live in the country or not, doesn't matter, expatriates. So it's about how do we effect that right and how do we protect that right. You definitely need to have your cybersecurity people, because we are there to make sure that that data is protected digitally or in the physical world. So you'll find personal information is in paper format, it's in electronic format, and different industries have it in different ways, right? So what's important is how do we actually protect that? How do we make sure that if you give me information in your capacity, how do you get comfort that that data is actually being looked after and it doesn't leak out into the public domain? I mean, how often have we heard about the Facebook breaches, the bank breaches, breaches in global organizations where heavy penalties and sanctions are applied? So that then brings the protection element into it. And then you've got the data management and the data governance professionals who come in having a very thorough understanding of how data is to be managed across its life cycle. So from the time you buy data or you collect data all the way through to keeping it, storing it, sharing it with lots of other third parties and external providers, and then eventually getting rid of it, right, in terms of deleting that data. And so the kind of collection of those professionals coming together, I think, is very important. And then applying that expertise to what your business is about, So if you're selling product, what does personal information mean? If you are selling services, what does personal information mean? How far and wide do you actually share that information? So for me, a privacy professional is really someone who is able to liaise very effectively with all of these different stakeholders who bring different components to the table, which then allows for what I believe is a very effective and a very successful privacy program in any organization.
I know you said in cybersecurity, so you are a privacy professional, cybersecurity perspective. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role? And I think each of the ladies can tell us a little bit about the role you play in this privacy profession.
Yeah, so look, throughout my career, I started off where I've headed up privacy programs specifically at a group level for, typically from a banking perspective. So come from a very heavy financial services background, currently in manufacturing. And when we look at it currently, I look at it with a cybersecurity lens. So my lens is about that sexy part about how do people hack into environments, how do we crack into this digital space? And my job is to make sure that we keep the bad guys out. We make sure that these bad guys are not coming into the organization, tampering with people's information, whether it's the integrity of that information, whether it's, stealing that data and selling it on. That's also a very rife practice across industries nowadays. And we all have had the odd, in fact, sometimes not odd, I think it's many spam calls coming to us. And you always wonder, where did you get my information from? How on earth is this happening? And why are you bugging me at 8 at night? So all of these components have got real experiences that touch all of us in some capacity. So when you look at it from a cybersecurity lens, I work very closely with legal professions, compliance professions. I work very strongly with our data office, our data management office, and collectively we really guide the conversation to say, guys, now we've got all of this data in our possession. How do we protect that? How do we make sure that the insiders of the organization, who could turn malicious too, how do we keep an eye on them, and how do we check up that nothing funny is going on with the data? And then from an outside perspective, we say to ourselves, how do we keep these bad guys out so that they don't come into our environment and expose the data or destroy, data in a bad way that can actually affect people at a personal level, whether it's your customer, whether it's your employee. So that's really the angle I come in at from.
You're the privacy police. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris, tell us about your career. What role do you play in this space?
So I am I'm a lawyer by training. I have an LLB, and I previously was in practice, and like Natasha, also spent some time in the financial services sector, which got me interested in IT law, and then migrated into a privacy professional at a research organization. Leaving that research organization, I joined my current company, which is a pharmaceutical company, in the role of head of privacy for sub-Saharan Africa. And I learned so much dealing, with the different legislations across all the different African countries, and also, tying that into our group policies. Last year, I left the strictly privacy role to become the head of ethics, risk, and compliance for South Africa. And of course, privacy still forms very much part of that scope, because I believe that our ethical obligation as a company, especially as a pharmaceutical company, dealing with a lot of patient data in terms of clinical trial data, scripting data, all of that sort of thing, also all that sort of data, we have a huge obligation to protect that data on behalf of our patients and our stakeholders. So I often joke and I say I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, but this is pretty much the closest that you can get to without having to really be in the trenches of fighting those human rights. So yeah, that's my background and how I feel where the privacy and the risks and ethics part of the business meet.
Okay, thanks so much. Echo, tell us about you.
In my final year of doing my LLB, I selected privacy and cyber law, and that really just ignited the privacy passion within me. I equally so also fulfilled a number of roles within the financial services industry, ranging from in operations to compliance to risk. But my privacy journey actually started when I joined one of the big banks' group privacy office as a regulatory specialist. And here we really just had to help business and guide business in their understanding of the data privacy principles, but also help and guide in the implementation of the privacy program. It needed you to really unpack and get your hands dirty with what business was doing, how their operations worked, business units such as procurement, marketing, IT, your various channels, and really just contextualize and ensure that the privacy principles are applied relative to their functions. So that really helped me understand how to implement privacy, how to explain privacy, and how to really just guide those business persons in their privacy journey. My current role as Data Privacy and Protection Officer, or DPO, for a financial services group really needs me to just take a step back and really strategize the group's approach rather to data privacy. And here we are drafting policies and standards and really just assigning roles and responsibilities to the role players which are critical and core to the continuous operationalizing and maturation of privacy. And I think it's really important to note that Data privacy is not a once and done deal. It's not a tick box where you can say that you are now complete. It is a journey. As technology evolves, as it continues to disrupt our everyday way of working, so too does privacy need to keep up and ensure that those controls implemented to ensure that personal information is lawfully processed, personal information is protected, remain adequate. So we need to keep up with technology. We need to keep abreast with what is happening out there from a technical perspective, because the way we process information, the way we process personal information is ultimately also impacted by these technological changes. And so too, we need to ensure that our controls that we have had put in place, our advice that we have had given, remain adequate. I think it's worthwhile saying that we speak of privacy professionals, but it's also good to know that privacy is actually a skill set. So whether you are a software developer, whether you're working in procurement and you're negotiating software agreements, whether you are in design or whether you are in any other field, acquiring a privacy as a skill set, knowing and understanding the fundamental principles of privacy really helps you in your day-to-day function. So it sets you apart in the sense that because personal information and because the processing of personal information impacts and affects so many different functions and by default so many different roles, that skill set is applied in everyday functions. So I think it's worthwhile, even though we speak of privacy professionals and even though we have privacy professionals, privacy as a skill set is just as equally important.
Thanks for helping us understand what you do. Tina, over to you.
Yeah, that's been actually very interesting. It makes a lot more sense now to me. So a question for all of you, obviously, because this is about introducing your kind of profession to our community. What is the most rewarding aspect of working in privacy?
And so for me, coming from a legal background, I think you a little bit, being, purely in a legal services role, you're a little bit distant from the business. They come to you at the end of a process or if there's a concern. Where a privacy professional, especially in the way businesses have transformed, I feel like you're really embedded in the business and you get to understand the business from the bottom up. Because as I said before, that personal information is present at so many stages of every project and every process, you really get to embed yourself in the business and then see projects through from beginning to end. And that's something that I really enjoy about being a privacy professional. I often think about it as the intersection between tech and law. And that's really something that makes me feel quite proud to be part of this profession.
That's awesome.
Exactly what Crystal said. You get to work with so many different people because privacy touches almost every business unit, almost every function. So you really get to work, you get to learn, you get to understand what different functions bring to the value chain. So that really keeps your job interesting because it's not mundane. You're not doing the same task. You are actually learning as you are going about. You are actually contextualizing and you are understanding what it is that other functions bring to the table and then applying that privacy lens to ensure that they remain compliant by fulfilling their function. I think it's also safe to say that our field is not stagnant. There's a lot happening in the privacy industry from a South Africa perspective with our information regulator. They are constantly bringing new things to the forefront, so that really keeps you on your toes. And overall, globally, the industry is changing. People are becoming more cognizant and aware of their fundamental privacy right. And as a user, as a data subject, as a person whose personal information is also being processed, you too understand the importance behind the privacy and data privacy.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's twofold, really. The one is, as the ladies have described, it's really an opportunity for you to understand every aspect of your business. What you'll find is if you're a privacy professional and you work in any organization, there is never a business unit or a department of that organization that is not affected by privacy. So it's a fantastic opportunity and platform to get very close to these business stakeholders and truly understand, what matters to their business and how they operate on a day-to-day basis. And that brings on a new skill set, right, in terms of, truly valuing and understanding on the ground how things transpire and therefore how privacy needs to be applied. So that for me is the one angle. Obviously, with the cybersecurity lens, for me, we get involved in a lot of projects, as an example. So let's say a new product is being released into the market, or a new service is being released, irrespective of the geography. Our role will be to make sure that the manner in which that product or service is released is done in a secure way. So when I see that product in the market, as a consumer or as a user, just generically, I know that I've contributed, sort of heart and soul and personally towards that product being used by people in a secure way. I have comfort that when people engage this particular service, it's being done in a secure way. And for me, that's quite rewarding, because that's for me a direct contribution that we make in our small way to the economy at large and to the people that we serve, through the industry that we work in. So for me, that's what really keeps me ticking. And that's what keeps me motivated to make sure that nothing goes out there that is not secure and that is not, properly looked after, so that people can consume it in a good way.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I like the fact that you find it really rewarding, and I can hear how, it's not just something you can sit and do and go like, I'm a privacy professional. It sounds like you really have to have this broad view of the organization and its customers and really understand how am I protecting our people, our customers, our employees. Sounds really amazing. So while this job can be rewarding and really rewarding, what do you find most challenging about privacy?
So I think that challenging is a good word, because I don't think it's a negative. I think that you have to realize that to be part of this professional, you have to be a learner, and you have to have that learner's mindset, because you will often have to advise on a business process that you're not an expert in. So you are advising a group of people who are experts in that specific process on how to do their job or their role or deliver their product better. So you have to be able to learn on the fly. You have to be able to be open-minded, take in your commercial business partners, your IT business partners, your compliance business partners. You need to be able to almost absorb all of those points of view and deliver some advice, often very quickly. So I think it's speed and agility that's a key requirement to be in this role.
Wow, amazing. Ritasha?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think there's a couple things. Certainly having a very open mindset, and one that is about typically not getting into the mode of saying no. What I've found is that, many professionals enter the space and they look at what the legal components are, and they'll understand what business is trying to do. And when business comes forward and says, okay, I'd like to launch this really innovative product or service, because of our risk-averse nature, we take a step back and go, oh, that's risky. I don't think you can do that. And that's where you upset the apple cart. You really can upset business, and you can really stifle that creativity that is really required for business to be innovative and competitive, especially in today's market, right? So one of the things I think that's very important, and I think privacy professionals should adopt a lot more, is try and not say no. Almost get that word no out of your vocabulary, and start thinking creatively. Start pushing the boundaries to say, guys, if there's a product here that needs to be launched and it's got some risk behind it, how do we rally together and mitigate that risk? How do we make sure that we still abide by the principles in terms of the true spirit of what the law has said? But how do we then leverage that to also drive a business? At the end of the day, a business is not a charity, right? We're here to get product out. We're here to compete in the market. We're here to become number one in what we do. And I think that is quite important, and it's hard. Because when you get into these conversations, they're not easy. You've got business pushing you with tight timelines, high pressure, quite a bit of aggression, depending on the industry that you're in, and they want to go, 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 And I think what's important is being able to keep pace, keep calm, be open-minded about what you are confronted with, and not deal the situation with aggression or conflict back, but to really take a step back, think about what is being asked of, and there's always a solution. And if you don't have an answer at that point in time, it's okay. Say to the team, let me have a think about it. It's a little bit complex. Let me have a think about it. Consult colleagues, right? I mean, the privacy professional, the profession is huge. There's a huge network out there. Talk to people, consult, ask how others have tried to overcome something similar, and then go back to the business with a solution. Not with a view to say, I'm sorry, guys, you can't do this because the law says so. Please sign up here to say that, if you want to continue, then you do it at your own risk. That's not partnering with your business. And I think that's really important in the profession that we're in. It's how do we partner, and how do we actually get business to trust us, and how do they involve us in the conversation? Because the minute they pick up the phone and they want to engage you, then you've actually achieved and you've become relevant in the organization. When you're the one that's being told, oh yeah, by the way, we got to go get this thing signed off by the privacy guys, then it's a grudge thing, So the challenge in our profession is how do we partner, and how do we become that person that you pick up the phone and call and say, guys, I need some help here. I can see some risk. Come into the meeting room, come into the boardroom, give us some advice. And then they hear you and they listen to you. So I think those are some of the things we've got to be open-minded to.
Okay, absolutely. I guess that counts for a lot of other within the organization and other roles in the organization as well. Because as you were speaking, I was like, some divisions where it was. So yeah, some points there that resonated. Thanks, Ritasha. And Cheryl?
Absolutely agree with what the ladies had said. In order to adopt a learner mindset, as well as ensure that the privacy principles are correctly applied, you need to contextualize what is being done and how it is being done. So that needs you to ask questions like, what is the personal information that is being processed? How is it being processed? Where is it being processed? Are there any cross-border flow of information? Where is it being stored? Are we using cloud services? And all of these, in this fact-finding and asking of these questions, business may find that you are trying to stifle their business objections, that you are trying to prevent them from going to market with a new product or new solutions, when in fact you are actually trying to help and guide them to implement the correct privacy controls at the onset, at the conceptual stage, at the design stage, to prevent rework from going back and in now trying to put those measures in place, redesign, rework. And that really ensures and really fosters a privacy by design thinking, a proactive way to implementing privacy rather than a reactive way and going back to fix up what was not done. And in all of this, I think what you really need to ensure is done is that it's a constant communication between you and your business stakeholders. You need to inform them that what you are trying to do is assist and guide them in this in the development or in the design or in the conceptual stages, so that they do not have to go back and rework.
Ritisha, you entered into the privacy sector from a technology background. Would you say that this has hindered you in a way, or do you think one must have a legal background to work in privacy?
So if I take my own career as an example, I came out of university, went straight into the consulting fraternity and started learning about this thing called IT security. My degree was a BCom informatics, which has got nothing to do with security. And I found myself spending quite a few years learning about this concept of IT security. And then from there, it was an easy branch out into, what is IT compliance all about? And when you deal with IT compliance, you start finding yourself interacting with different regulations that affect this digital or the technology space. And I then stumbled upon privacy as one of the acts. And in fact, my manager at the time said to me, Ratasha, there's this thing called privacy that's come out. I need you to go have a look at it, and I need you to lead this, And I thought, okay. So I started getting involved and understanding privacy. I got my certifications around the CIPP. In fact, one of the achievements I'm quite proud of is I was the first female in South Africa to have been certified. And that kind of gave me quite a good understanding, having gone to the US and kind of gotten the certification to say, okay, what is this thing called privacy and how do other countries deal with it? And that's how I ended up in the field of privacy. And I must say, I've got no regrets having walked that path, because today, in my current profession, I can relate to any one of those concepts. So whether I'm having a risk conversation with risk people or I'm having a conversation with technical people in IT, we always think about these developers and highly technical guys that sit down in the dungeons of technology. I can talk to them in their language about what is privacy about and why should they care. When I sit down with my legal colleagues, I learn so much from them. I've got questions about, but guys, if we do this, how could you help make sure that this happens? And then they come up with different views. If we're in trouble, I sit down with the legal colleagues and we say, guys, now what do we do? Where do we go?
Yeah.
How do we get ourselves out of trouble? So it's really equipped me from that perspective to be able to relate to all of these professions and respect all of them equally, and to know that all of us have a place in this. And I would strongly recommend that any privacy professional, anyone wanting to get into this profession, make sure that you get some level of understanding of technology, absolutely important. Understand the basics and the foundational components of security. I always say to people, you can have security without privacy, but you will never have privacy without security. And those two work hand in glove. Those two departments have to be tied by the hip if you want to make this successful. So for me, that's important. I don't think you have to be a specific profession necessarily, but I think you do need to have an understanding and a basic view of how these different professions operate, how they think, because we all are wired differently. Hey, I come from a place of no trust. So if you're in security, you trust no one, because that's how we work, because we're here to keep bad guys out. We think like the bad guys. And so it's a different dynamic, right? Whereas if you talk to a legal profession, they understand the laws, they understand the components of the different regulations coming together, and they can guide you on a totally different level. So I think it's important not to go specifically into one area, but broaden that experience as much as you can and try and get that exposure to the maximum extent that you can.
The crystal for you, having been responsible for privacy across Africa for your organization, would you say that a career in privacy opens doors to international work?
So absolutely, as I previously said, it's given you exposure to so many business processes. So you become a very, very good business partner. Like Natasha says, to be able to understand everybody's perspective. And that will inevitably, if you know how to collaborate, if you know how to support the business, if you understand that, you know, it's not a charity, that we need to work together to make sure that the strategies, we can meet our strategic goals and imperatives. So I think that it would definitely open doors. And I think that an important takeaway for those who are looking to make the career switch is that privacy is not an add-on. Privacy isn't the thing that kills the sexy idea. Sometimes privacy in itself can be the innovation. With people being alive to privacy now, let's start thinking about initiatives that are actually focused on selling privacy. If the consumer believes that this product is better because it protects their personal information and not a great product and it protects its personal information, we need to change that mindset as well.
And then our last question is for Cheryl. As someone who's worked in large organizations, do you think privacy offers a good career path?
As we've discussed today, there are a number of stakeholders involved in data privacy. So it is not limited to, for example, only your legal stakeholders. You need your security team to help you protect that personal information. You need your compliance team to engage with your regulators. You need your risk teams to really help you identify where there are any gaps in the business. So there are a number of different stakeholders that look at data privacy from different aspects, and these individuals have their own unique way of thinking and looking at data privacy. So it's definitely a good career path in the sense that it is not limited to a certain group of individuals who think like-minded. Although, as privacy professionals, we all are fundamentally privacy geeks, because that is centered and that is the core and center of our day-to-day functions. In a large organization, there are many functions and there are many business units, and within each of these functions and business units, it's important that that business unit ensure that privacy in their day-to-day function is adhered to. The privacy principles are adhered to, privacy policies are abided to, we remain compliant to our privacy policies. And within each of these business units, you need that privacy champion. You need the individual, in as much as they may be, their expertise may be, for example, a data scientist, or a procurement specialist, or a digital marketer. Championing privacy for that relevant function is something that is also equally key, because you need a wide spread of individuals across the organization who can help carry the message forward. So I think it's safe to say that privacy, even though it may not be your profession, it's still a skill set that is worth acquiring, because, as I mentioned, in your day-to-day functions, personal information will almost always be processed. And when you acquire that skill set, when you have a good understanding of those principles in performing your day-to-day task and keeping privacy at the back of your mind, you will ensure that your organization remains compliant. Your organization has a competitive advantage. So definitely within a large organization, you need those individuals who not only are privacy professions, and that is their key role, but also as a secondary function and as a skill set have acquired privacy, and who can champion privacy for their relevant functions. As Crystal has also indicated, because technology is changing, we need an innovative way of implementing privacy. So we need those new thinkers who can come and challenge our way of implementing and challenge our way of thinking, and ensuring that privacy is implemented in a way that is unique, that is different, that keeps us ahead of the game. So definitely, I think it is a good career path, specifically within a large organization. There's a lot of room for growth, and like I mentioned, it keeps you on your toes because there's so much happening in this field.
Crystal, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say thank you very, very much for having me today. I really enjoyed, everybody's insights and being part of this panel discussion, and wishing all of our young and aspiring tech graduates the best of luck, and hope that you have a successful career in this space.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. I really believe our members are going to get immense value. Remember, this is a skill set. Think out of the box, and definitely, if you acquire this kind of skill set, you can take it into different parts of the organization and really add value. Are there any closing words you would like to share with our members before we start?
No, I think, thank you so much. I think it is really a doorway into, like you said, various different roles and everything. It's a growing industry, and I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think very similar. Just to really thank everyone for the opportunity. I'm very humbled by the opportunity to have been given the chance to really share my own experience and what this profession is about. It really is an exciting space. So, don't feel daunted by it. Don't feel like it's this mammoth task that one is trying to pick up. My advice to you is take it in small chunks. And it doesn't matter where your career is going, whether you're in a particular tech domain, whether you're in computer science, it really doesn't matter. Just kind of understand the basic concepts, see whether you like it, see whether it actually interests you and tickles your fancy. And then get more and more into it, yeah. And I would strongly suggest to surround yourself with people who can teach you about the topic. And who can expose you to that topic. So if you've got an interest and you're in a corporate and you're just starting out, touch base and network with people who understand this really well. You can learn so much by just sitting in meetings and understanding how they're driving these specific initiatives. And yeah, I suppose as a closing remark, I look forward to bumping into you at some point. In terms of different organizations, and you can then teach me a new way of how we can look at privacy and cybersecurity. So I look forward to that, and I just want to wish all the girls out there all the best in their careers. Be who you are, stay who you are, and I look forward to seeing you succeed and succeed really well.
Ritasha, we definitely hope to meet you again, because I'm very involved in self-sovereign identity, which is blockchain-based identity for now, and it might be other tech in the future. But as all of you spoke, I really thought, I need to chat to these ladies again.
Separately.
We really appreciate it. Please take care and go well.
Yes, to you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.